We are now going to take a look at the by-election in Erdington last week, where Dave Nellis stood for the Trade Union and Socialist Coalition and got 360 votes, 2.12%. It's not a fantastic result, but he came third. Crispin spoke to Chris Williamson about the result.
Thank you, Chris, for agreeing to this interview about the Erdington by-election. Now, I woke up and I saw the result and I thought, where's TUSC come? And it said third. I thought, that's amazing. Then I hear all these people saying, yeah, but they only got 300 and something votes. And I thought, yeah, but they came third. They beat the LibDems, they beat the Greens. If it had been a far-right party who had come third, we would all be scared. We'd be thinking this is a terrible development. Why are we not celebrating the fact that an alternative party came third? It's positive.
Well, I think it's positive too, but I guess people are, wedded to the two-party system and feel that is the only way of, doing politics. But my view is it's really important that we have a multitude of different voices. And as you know, I've been working with others to try and build a kind of coalition on the left, as it were. But I do think it's significant. Yes, obviously, we'd love to have seen Dave win it. We'd love to see him get more votes. But to come third, I think, when there was a sort of conspiracy of silence in the media, he got no coverage whatsoever. He wasn't even invited onto the hustings that was hosted by the local radio station, even though the TUSC campaign was the most vibrant campaign in Erdington. Actually, there were more campaigners, I think, on the streets for Dave than there were for either of the two main parties. So, with that conspiracy of silence, I think it was, quite a significant achievement to come third and a good springboard for future activity. And it did bring a lot of people into the campaign. And of course, this isn't just the first time where a alternative party has come third in that way. I mean, I campaigned in Batley and Spen for the Workers' Party, and they came third, but they got a bigger share of the vote. But it does show you, I think, that when you offer an alternative, that, there is an appetite for it. And we just need to build on that, it seems to me.
What do you think the prospects are if you stay in Labour? I mean, people sort of, this stay and fight thing is losing its appeal by the week. I mean, you get sort of, people can't sign a letter with Stop the War, and then people can't speak on a Stop the War rally. So I find it very difficult that people would say, there's no point in another party.
Well, I think there's no future really for the left inside the Labour Party, and that's been my opinion for a couple of years or so now. I mean, as you know, Crispin was a party member for 44 years and always believed it was the best vehicle to deliver progressive social change. I guess I was kind of content with some crumbs from the table. I suppose it's always been, the Labour Party has always been a tool of the establishment, really, to try and, as it were, preserve the status quo. But what we're seeing now, of course, is that no dissent is allowed at all. I mean, for the Socialist Campaign Group members to sign that modest anti-war statement and then to receive an instruction that they must remove it and then to all meekly comply. We've never seen anything like that before inside the Labour Party. I mean, even under the Tony Blair years, that wasn't the case. And, if you're going to be in the Labour Party and just, keep your head down and be quiet, what's the point?
But what I wanted to say was this sort of negativity that there is about a new party. The ones in the past never worked. That nothing took off in the Blair years. I've heard this comment. What's different now from then, do you think, that makes it more likely that one could take off?
Well, when people say, it's never worked, I mean, that is a false reading of history. I mean, the Labour Party was a new kid on the block, wasn't it? Over 100 years ago, albeit. But I mean, the political duopoly was broken then. It's been broken in Scotland with the rise of the SNP. Labour is persona non grata, really, in Scotland nowadays. And so, yes, of course, it's difficult in a first-past-the-post electoral system, but politics shouldn't be just about putting candidates up to fight elections. Obviously, that's a really important part of it, but it's about building a movement. That's why I was so excited about Jeremy's leadership when he first burst onto the scene as the leadership candidate and talked about building a social movement. That's absolutely crucial. And that actually then gives you strength in depth. And that's how socialist parties have thrived in Latin America, despite, the evil empire, the US, doing its damnedest to smash them, destroy them. So I think we should take heart from that, be inspired by liberation struggles and socialist movements around the world, and be inspired by our own history. You know, we've done it in the past and we can do it again in the future. More and more unions, I think, are becoming disenchanted with the party. And, you know, the Bakers, as we know, have already disaffiliated. ASLEF are looking to go that way. Unite are certainly hanging on by, you know, a thread now. And so there is a real chance, I think, that, you know, we'll see more unions disaffiliating. There is huge dissatisfaction across the country. In Erdington, 73% didn't vote. And our route, I think, to power is to inspire those people who have become disenchanted with politics altogether, to give a voice to the voiceless. That's what we should be aiming to do.
I think every time there's any hope, we should big it up and not say, oh, it was only 300. You know, just every chink of light has to be brighter. We have to make it brighter, not kind of.
No, indeed, absolutely. Yeah, that's our only hope. That's our only hope, isn't it, mate? Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on. I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Cheers.
So, Chris Williamson liked the result. Naomi is joining us now. Naomi Wimborne-Idrissi from Jewish Voice for Labour. You've just been selected by one of the slates to be a left candidate for the Labour NEC elections. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you're just flogging a dead horse?
Well, no, it's a question that it's perfectly valid to ask. And, you know, obviously I have great respect for all the comrades who did work for Dave Nellis up there in Coventry. And he was a former, up there in Birmingham, he was a former Labour MP, of course, for Coventry South East. So he was a good candidate. He had a good reputation in the area. He committed to only taking a worker's wage if he were to win, and he'd be an MP who would stand up for workers. So all good stuff. And but the problem is, and I must say, you know, I do take Crispin's point. Let's look for those chinks of light. Let's celebrate them. So, you know, good on those comrades who put in all the effort up there. But I'm sorry to say it, let's not kid ourselves. The turnout was appalling. I mean, down to 27% from 50.3 in the general election. I mean, by-elections are always lower, but that is just dreadful. So talk of, you know, an inspiring campaign, getting the mass of workers behind us. Well, that wasn't happening, was it? So let's not over-egg it. It's something that it could be seen as a bit of a diversion, because one of the best things that Chris said, and all respect to him, is politics is not just about Parliament. It's not just about going out canvassing. It's not just about knocking on doors. So all the door knocking for Dave Nellis, like all the door knocking we did in my area for Faisal Shaheen to try and unseat Ian Duncan Smith, we had everybody pouring into Chingford and Woodford Green to try and get rid of Ian Duncan Smith. Faisal did pretty well with all the campaigning. She decreased his majority by a little bit, but it doesn't win you anything. You've got to be building that movement on the ground. And this is why I think we've got to have a two-track strategy. Those of us who can stay in the party, and I know it's an old argument and people say, oh God, we've heard this all before. Those of us who stay in the party, who can stay in the party, should do so. We shouldn't do the work of the right by resigning. If you resign, you won't be able to vote for me in the NEC election, which I do think is a consideration. There is a virtue in staying there to encourage those who joined under Jeremy and who have not yet given up on the only party we have, sadly, in this country, which has those historic connections with the organised labour movement. But there's a hell of a lot of stuff that we can all be doing as the other track outside the Labour Party. I've been really encouraged by things like the movement against the Nationality and Borders Bill, the Police Crime Courts and Sentencing Bill, where all sorts of organisations embedded in their communities are trying to get their constituencies to wake up to the threats and mobilise them. It's slow going. I mean, last weekend at this time, I was trying to come on the show, wasn't I, from the Nationality and Borders Bill demo down in Westminster, and I couldn't get on, sadly. And there were all these little groups. There were Sikh groups and Muslim groups and Black groups and Gypsy Roma traveller groups, all coming together with one voice to say these racist authoritarian threats as they're coming down the road affect us all, every single one of us, and we have to mobilise. And we want people in the Labour Party mobilising, we want people in their unions mobilising, we want people in communities where, you know, all sorts of opposition is growing. You've got these strikes developing. Sharon Graham, and I know we've discussed and we will continue to discuss what her role is as leader of one of the biggest unions in the country. She's backing small-scale struggles, which are really, really important, and energize and give hope to people, and that's really important.
Absolutely, I think it's quite right. You're quite right. If you're still in the Labour Party, I mean, now is the time really to fight. If you haven't done it before, I mean, I think it's a bit late already. But if you are still in the Labour Party, I think the time is to fight. What we're trying to do, actually, and I hope you're up for that, is organise a hustings of all the left-wing NEC candidates, because the stay and fight thing is important also for representatives, and it's quite difficult, I think, to see who's, you know, done a good job on the NEC or who hasn't. There's a lot of silence coming from left-wing NEC members, so we're hoping that this is actually a good way to challenge some of them politically. So I would have thought you and Deborah will probably come up for that, and perhaps some of the other candidates as well.
Can I make one more point that I've kind of missed out? And it's about the importance of the struggle against racism. Because one of the things our friend Steve Price, who's of course been expelled, he says, for organising and chairing a meeting of law, Labour Against Witch Hunt in 2018, about anti-Black racism in the West Midlands Labour Party. Isn't it a scandal that there never has been a Black MP in that area? And now that we've got one, unfortunately, it's somebody who's supported by Starmer and not our wing of the party. But, you know, this whole question of dealing with all the racist threats that are around in the party and outside the party, this is really important. And I hope that people will take heart from the fact that there are some people who still want to go in there, try and challenge at the upper echelons of the party. You know, you may say it's a mug's game doing that. It's a bit of a poison chalice to even contemplate taking it on. But don't leave now. I'm getting so many messages saying, oh, it's great that you're standing. Unfortunately, I can't vote for you because I left the party last month, yesterday. It's happening all the time. And I understand, Michael, I understand. Anyway, I won't take up any more time. Thanks for having me on, Tina.
Thank you very much for coming on. See you soon.